After my boss traveled, her daughter took over and decided to make my life miserable. But then, something completely unexpected happened. My name is Amanda, and I need to tell you what went down in recent months. I still can hardly believe how it all unfolded, but I promise that every word of this story is absolutely true. I've been working for 5 years at Sinclair Software, a leading enterprise software company based in Austin, Texas. I'm the company's top salesperson. It's bringing in over $2.3 million in annual sales. And yes, you heard that right. It's a significant amount. My relationship with Janet, my boss, had always been built on mutual respect. She built this company from scratch 15 years ago and had a knack for recognizing talent. So, when she decided to travel to a technology conference in San Francisco for 2 weeks, I never imagined my world was about to be flipped on its head. Janet left her 26-year-old daughter, Madison, in temporary charge of the company. Madison had an MBA in administration from the University of Texas, but zero practical experience. I always arrived at the office between 10 and 10:30 in the morning. This wasn't out of laziness or negligence. I had a special arrangement with Janet. My main clients are on the West Coast. I frequently need to work late to meet their needs. Besides, my performance spoke for itself. Year after year, I was consistently breaking sales records, nurturing strong client relationships, and generating substantial revenue that fueled a significant portion of the company. On Monday morning, I arrived as always, carrying my favorite coffee and already mentally organizing my day's agenda. Had an important presentation to prepare for the contract renewal with Texas Tech Solutions, and I needed to review the proposals I would send to 3 potential new clients. I had barely put my bag on the table when Madison burst in like a hurricane. She wore an impeccable gray suit, blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun that made her face seem even sharper, and her blue eyes gleamed with an air of authority she clearly hadn't earned. There was something in her posture, a rigidity that screamed insecurity masked as power. "Miss Amanda," she practically shouted, making the entire office turn to look at us. The environment, which seconds before was in the normal hustle and bustle of the morning, became instantly tense. It's 10:30 in the morning. Work hours here start at 8. I took a deep breath, maintaining my professional composure. I had dealt with delicate situations before, difficult clients, complicated contracts, impossible deadlines, but never within my own company, and never with someone who theoretically should have been on my side. "Good morning, Madison," I explained. "To your mother years ago, I have flexible hours due to my West Coast clients. Yesterday, I worked until 11 at night, closing a $400,000 contract with a Los Angeles company." I saw her face flush red, a stark contrast to her naturally pale complexion. "I don't care. While my mother is away, I command this company, and here no one shows up whenever they please." The entire office was silent. Sarah from accounting had stopped typing. Mike, our senior developer, peered over his monitor with a worried expression. Jennifer from reception pretended to organize papers, but was clearly hanging on every word. I had a reputation for being calm and diplomatic, but also for not letting myself be walked all over. "Madison, I suggest we talk in your office." "I can. Better explain how my agreement with your mother works and show the results I've been achieving." "No, you're going to explain to me right here in front of everyone why you think you're too special to follow the rules like everyone else." It was at that moment I realized I was dealing with someone who had no clue how a company truly operates. Madison had no idea who I was or what I represented to Sinclair Software. To her, I was just another employee trying to bend the rules for convenience. The tension in the air was palpable. Sarah whispered something to Mike, who shook his head. Disapprovingly, one of the marketing interns stopped walking down the hallway and stood watching the situation. It was obvious that Madison wanted to make a show of power, use me as an example to assert her temporary authority. "Look, Madison," I began, trying to keep my tone respectful, yet firm. "I understand you want to do good work while your mother is away. But there's a reason I have this special schedule. Last year, I alone brought more than $2 million in contracts to this company. I work with clients in different time zones and often need to be available when they are. Yesterday, after you left, I stayed until stop, She interrupted me, slamming Sarah's desk with such force that a pencil holder jumped. I don't care how much money you think you brought. Rules are rules, and you will follow them. I realized there was no possible conversation. Madison was determined to create a conflict, and I was at the center of the storm. What I didn't know was that this was just the beginning of the nightmare that was to come. There was something in her eyes, a disproportionate anger that went far beyond a simple scheduling issue. It was as if she had specifically chosen me for her display of power. Madison approached me, clipboard in hand, her eyes sparkling with fury. Her breathing was accelerated, nostrils dilated, and I could see small beads of sweat forming on her forehead despite the air conditioning. What happened next still shocks me when I think about it. She raised the clipboard and slammed it forcefully against my head, hitting my left eyebrow. The pain was instant and intense, like an explosion of white light behind my eyes. I immediately felt the metallic taste of blood in my mouth and a warm sensation trickling down the side of my face. Nobody, she screamed, nobody will disrespect my authority in this company. While I brought my hand to my face, feeling blood flow between my fingers. You're fired. Get out of here right this instant. The office exploded in murmurs of shock and horror. Sarah rushed to me with a box of tissues, her eyes wide with concern. Amanda, are you okay? This is assault. Someone needs to call the police. Jennifer had gotten up from reception, phone in hand, clearly not knowing whether she should dial 911 or not. Mike was standing, hands clenched in fists, visibly contemplating physical intervention. Madison showed not a shred of regret. Contrary, she seemed satisfied, almost euphoric with what she had done. There was a strange gleam in her eyes, as if she had finally proven something to herself. And if anyone else questions my decisions, they'll end up like her. My eyebrow was throbbing, and I felt blood dripping onto the floor. But my mind was surprisingly clear. 5 years working there, I had never been through anything remotely similar. Janet would be horrified if she knew what her daughter had done. But Janet was 3,000 miles away. I was there bleeding with a crazy person who had just physically assaulted me. Madison, I said, wiping the blood with the tissue Sarah gave me, my voice coming out firmer than I expected. Are you sure you want to fire me? Do you have any idea what this means for the contracts I'm managing? Do you know how many clients depend specifically on my work? She laughed cruelly, a harsh sound that completely contradicted her refined appearance. You think you're irreplaceable? Please, anyone can do sales. You are easily replaceable, Amanda. And now everyone here knows it. It was at that moment I had a crystal clear revelation. Madison had no idea how the company worked. She didn't know that I had personal relationships built over years with our biggest clients. She didn't understand that enterprise software contracts depend on trust and lasting relationships. To her, sales were something simple, mechanical, something anyone could do. All right, I replied calmly, surprising myself with the calmness. In my voice, I'll get my belongings. Madison seemed almost disappointed with my calm reaction. She was clearly expecting me to make a scene, cry, beg, or argue more. This would give her more ammunition to feel powerful and justified in her actions. Madison disappeared for a few minutes, and I heard her talking on the phone in Janet's office. Her voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. Pieces of the conversation. Mom, I had to fire Amanda. Yes, that arrogant saleswoman. She completely disrespected me in front of everyone. No, I couldn't let it slide. While she talked, I walked to my desk to start collecting my belongings. Each item I touched carried memories of years of dedication. The personalized mug I got when I closed my first big contract. Photos from company awards. A small cactus that Jennifer gave me on my birthday, saying it was resilient like me. There was something surreal about packing 5 years of my professional life into a cardboard box, while my aggressor cheerfully talked to her mother a few meters away. Sarah approached and whispered, Amanda, this is absurd. You should go straight to a hospital and then to a police station. What she did is a crime. Mike came to my desk outraged. 5 years of exemplary work and she fires you like this, and on top of that, assaults you. Janet will be furious when she finds out what really happened. If she finds out, I murmured, putting my personal files in the box. Madison is clearly telling a very different version of the story. Jennifer left reception and came to me discreetly, handing me a small paper, my personal number. If you need anything at all, call me. What happened here today isn't right. When Madison returned from the phone call, she had a triumphant smile on her face that made me want to vomit. She had managed to manipulate the situation perfectly. Portraying herself as a firm manager who had dealt with a problematic employee, "I just spoke with my mother," she announced to the entire office as if it were a personal achievement. She told me to do what I thought was best. So, your dismissal is official, Amanda. What Madison didn't mention, and I only found out later through Jennifer, who had contacts in the company, is that Janet was in a crucial meeting with East Coast investors when she called. Janet had answered quickly, distracted, only hearing about employee problems and needing authorization to fire, without really understanding the gravity of the situation or knowing it was specifically about me. Her meeting. If Janet had known that Madison had physically assaulted me and was firing me without justifiable cause, she would never have given that response. But Madison had been strategic in how she presented the situation. "You're making a very big mistake." I tried to warn one last time, adjusting the box in my arms. "I have contracts worth more than $1.5 million in progress. Texas Tech Solutions signed with us specifically because of the relationship we built over 3 years. Megacorp Industries has been renewing with us for years because they trust my work. Austin Digital has a $600,000 implementation project underway based on my specifications." Enough. Madison cut me off, making a dramatic gesture with her hands. "Are you trying to scare me with your special relationships? Please, contracts are contracts. They won't cancel just because an employee was fired. Business continues regardless of who's selling." I shook my head, realizing it was completely useless to try to explain. Madison lived in a world where she believed business operated like simple transactions, completely missing the human element that truly drives the market. She saw contracts as static documents, not understanding that behind each signature were years of building trust, solving specific problems, and being available when the client needed it most. Besides, she continued, clearly enjoying having an audience. Any competent person can maintain commercial relationships. It's not rocket science. Some employees exchanged worried looks. Sarah discreetly shook her head, and Mike was visibly clenching his jaw. Everyone there knew that Madison was about to learn a very expensive lesson about how business truly works. I finished organizing my desk and headed to the finance department, located at the end of the hallway. I needed to settle my commission for the contracts I'd closed the previous month. $95,750. It was a significant amount, the result of weeks of careful negotiation with 3 different clients, including deals other company salespeople had tried unsuccessfully for months. Linda, the financial supervisor, a woman in her 50s, had worked at the company almost as long as Janet. She received me with a look of genuine concern and shock. "Amanda, dear, I can't believe what happened. Jennifer told me Madison assaulted you. Is that true?" She looked at the cut on my eyebrow, which was still bleeding slightly. "You should go to a hospital." "I'm fine, Linda. I just want to resolve this and get out of here as quickly as possible. I'm here to receive my pending commission from the contracts closed last month." Linda consulted the computer, her fingers flying over the keyboard with the efficiency of decades of experience. "Everything's correct here. $95,750. 3 contracts. Texas Tech, $42,000. Megacorp, $31,000. And that new client from Dallas, $22,750. I'll prepare the check right now." While Linda prepared the documentation, I allowed myself to feel a moment of pride. These were impressive numbers, representing not just sales, but real solutions I had developed for specific problems of each client. Each of these contracts had a story, a need I had identified and met. That's when Madison appeared at the finance department door, as if she had followed me. There was something predatory in the way she had moved silently down the hallway to reach me. "Wait there, Linda. You're not giving her any check." Linda looked at her confused, her eyebrows frowning. Madison, these are commissions for contracts she closed. It's money she legitimately earned. It's all documented here. It was Madison corrected arrogantly, crossing her arms and partially blocking the door. But employees fired for insubordination lose the right to pending commissions. It's a new rule I'm implementing. I felt my blood boil but kept my voice controlled. What new rule? This doesn't exist in my contract or in company policies. Where is this written? It exists now, she said with a cruel smile that revealed her perfectly aligned teeth. My company, my rules. It's an executive decision I'm making to protect the company's interests. Linda was visibly uncomfortable, her hands hesitating over the keyboard. Madison, I really don't know if I can do this. It would be good to consult legal first, or at least have this in writing. Commissions are acquired rights of the employee. Linda Madison spoke with a tone of barely disguised threat, approaching her desk. Are you questioning my authority too? It's because I can very well implement more changes in the company, starting with a complete restructuring of the finance department. It was pure and simple blackmail. Linda was 49 years old, had 2 teenage daughters, a mortgage, and an elderly mother in an expensive nursing home. She couldn't afford to lose her job, especially in an uncertain economy and at her age. Finding a new equivalent position would be incredibly difficult. She looked at me with an expression of apology and helplessness that broke my heart. Amanda, I'm really sorry. I respect you enormously, but I'll have to follow her orders. At that moment, something definitively broke inside me. It wasn't just anger at the financial injustice, but a crystal clear understanding of who Madison really was and what she was capable of doing. She wasn't just abusing temporary power, she was creating a toxic environment, using fear to control people, and destroying work relationships that took years to build. All right, I said calmly, taking my box and adjusting it in my arms. Understand the situation perfectly, Linda. And I understand you too, Madison. Madison seemed almost disappointed with my calm reaction. She was clearly expecting me to make a scene, cry, beg, or argue more. This would give her more ammunition to feel powerful and justified in her actions. Great, good that you finally understood how things work here, she said, moving away from the door with a theatrical gesture. Linda also prepared the termination documents. I want everything official today. I walked to the exit carrying my box of belongings, feeling the sympathetic glances of my colleagues. The office had become strangely silent, as if everyone was processing what they had just witnessed. Sarah gave me a quick hug when I passed her desk, whispering, "This won't stand, Amanda. Somehow the truth will come out." Mike waved discreetly, and I could see he was visibly shaken. Jennifer followed me to the elevator, checking that no one was looking before speaking. Amanda, what happened here today was absolutely unacceptable. If you need witnesses for anything legal, you can count on me. While waiting for the elevator, I felt Madison watching me from afar, leaning against the wall with crossed arms like a predator admiring its downed prey. She had gotten exactly what she wanted: humiliate the company's most successful employee, steal her legitimately earned money, and show everyone she was in absolute command. But what Madison didn't know was that by treating me that way, she had ignited something inside me that I didn't even know existed. For 5 years, I was a loyal, dedicated employee who always put the company's interests above my own. I worked on weekends, stayed late, built solid relationships, thinking solely about the good of Sinclair Software and the growth of the company I respected. Now, for the first time in my professional life, I was going to think solely about myself. The elevator arrived and I entered, holding my box of belongings. When the doors closed, I saw the reflection of my face in the polished steel. The cut on my eyebrow had stopped bleeding but would leave a mark that would remind me every day of how unfairly I'd been treated by someone who had no concept of the value of my work. Arriving at the parking lot, I put the box in the trunk of my Honda Accord and sat in the driver's seat. For a few minutes I just breathed. The adrenaline was starting to fade, and I felt a strange mixture of anger, relief, and something I can only describe as clarity. For the first time in 5 years, I didn't have to worry about protecting Sinclair Software's interests. I took my phone and looked at my contact list. Commercial relationships I had carefully cultivated over 5 years, built on mutual trust, professional respect, and consistent results. Madison had unwittingly turned this list into my greatest weapon. First call, David, CEO of Texas Tech Solutions. David was one of my favorite clients, a brilliant engineer who had built his software development company from the ground up. Our relationship went far beyond professional. We developed a true partnership over 3 years, based on mutual respect and exceptional results. Amanda, good to hear your voice. How are things over there? I was just thinking of calling you to discuss that system expansion we talked about last week. David, I need to tell you something important. I just left Sinclair Software. There's been a change in management, and well, we decided it was best for me to pursue my own path. There was a long pause. I could imagine David frowning, trying to process the information. What? Amanda, to us. You are Sinclair Software. Our renewal contract is entirely based on the work you do with us. You know our system better than we. Dude, does Janet know this? Situation's complicated, David. Janet's traveling, and her daughter took over temporarily. Let's just say we had very different visions about how to conduct business and what constitutes professionalism. Listen, Amanda, I'm going to be completely direct with you. Our contract is worth $800,000 and expires next month. If you're no longer there, it simply doesn't make sense for us to renew. You know our system, our specific needs. You're the one who solves our problems when they arise. Remember that critical bug we had in the reports module, and you stayed online with us until 3 a.m. to solve it? Without you, we'll have to look for another company. I felt a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Satisfaction because finally someone recognized my real value so clearly. And sadness because this meant Sinclair Software would lose a crucial client because of Madison's arrogance and ignorance. I understand perfectly, David. Do what's best. For your company, you deserve the best possible support. Amanda, can I ask you something? You already have plans for where you're going to work? Because if you're interested, we'd love to talk about a direct consulting position with us. I smiled for the first time that day. I'm still evaluating my options, David, but I truly appreciate the offer. After hanging up, I called Marcus, IT Director at Megacorp Industries. Marcus was an industry veteran, someone who had seen many software companies come and go. He always said I was one of the few salespeople who truly understood technology instead of just selling empty promises. Marcus, it's Amanda from Sinclair. I need to inform you of something important. I'm no longer with the company. What do you mean, Amanda? You've been our contact for 5 years? We have that $600,000 implementation project starting next quarter? And you were coordinating everything personally. I know, and I'm truly sorry. There were sudden changes in administration, and the new management decided it would be best for me to seek new challenges. Marcus was silent for a moment. I could hear keyboard noise in the background, probably. Him checking our contracts in the system. Look, Amanda, I'm going to have to talk urgently with my team. This project was developed specifically based on your specifications and your deep knowledge of our legacy system. You participated in all the planning meetings. You know our specific limitations. Without you there to guarantee continuity, we'll have to seriously reevaluate whether it still makes sense to continue with Sinclair. The third call was to Patricia, CEO of Austin Digital. Patricia was one of my favorite clients, a brilliant entrepreneur who had built her digital marketing company from the ground up and always valued genuine relationships more than grandiose promises. Patricia, I have news you need to know immediately. I'm no longer at Sinclair Software. Amanda, it can't be true. Voice sounded genuinely shocked. You're literally the reason we chose Sinclair 3 years ago. Remember that? Critical system problem we had during our Black Friday campaign, and you stayed working with us until it was completely resolved. Without you, what's going to happen with our support and the improvements we were planning? Unfortunately, I can no longer guarantee the level of personalized service you deserve. The company is under new temporary management and priorities have changed significantly. Patricia sighed deeply. Amanda, our contract is worth $400,000 annually, but that's not even the main issue. The issue is trust and relationship. We trust you, your competence, your integrity, not necessarily the company itself. If you're no longer there to guarantee that our interests are protected, we'll have to seriously consider other options in the market. In 2 hours, I had called my 8 main clients, each representing substantial contracts and solid relationships. All had similar reactions. Initial shock. Genuine concern about the future of their projects. Very clear signals that they would reevaluate their relationships with Sinclair Software. I didn't ask anyone to cancel contracts. That would be unethical and could cause me legal problems. I simply informed them of my departure professionally and let each client draw their own conclusions based on the importance they placed on our working relationship. Meanwhile, at Sinclair Software, Madison was living out her fantasy of being a powerful CEO. Sarah told me later that she had called a general meeting in the late afternoon to establish new guidelines and make it clear that the company now had firm, decisive leadership. Starting today, Madison announced to the entire team gathered in the conference room, this company will operate with real discipline and professionalism. We will no longer tolerate employees who think they're special or can create their own rules. Schedules will be respected, hierarchy will be respected, and any attempt at insubordination will be met with immediate measures. Jack timidly raised his hand. Madison, about Amanda? She managed the company's most important contracts. Who's going to take over those clients? We need time to make the transition properly. Madison laughed with disdain, clearly feeling superior. Mike, you seriously underestimate our team. Sales are sales. Any competent person can call a client and maintain a commercial relationship. It's not rocket science. Sarah, you're going to take over Amanda's portfolio temporarily. Sarah went visibly pale. Madison, I've worked in accounting for 7 years. I have no experience with sales, much less with the specific clients Amanda served. Each of them has very particular needs that I don't know, and it's a great opportunity for you to learn and grow within the company. Madison responded with a forced smile that didn't reach her eyes. Or do you prefer to question my decision too? Because I can easily find someone more willing to accept new challenges. The atmosphere in the conference room grew heavy. People began to shift uncomfortably in their chairs, exchanging worried glances. Jennifer, who had been summoned to take notes for the meeting, was visibly tense. 3 experienced employees approached her at the end of the day, discreetly asking about voluntary dismissal policies and how to request internal transfers. Madison continued her autocratic presentation. In addition, I'm implementing new rules to ensure maximum productivity. Lunch breaks will be reduced to 30 minutes. Coffee breaks are suspended indefinitely. And any employee who needs to leave early for personal reasons must make up the hours on weekends. A murmur of discontent rippled through the room. These were drastic changes that went against years of corporate culture established by Janet, who always prioritized work-life balance as a way to keep employees motivated and productive. The next morning, Madison arrived at the office at 7:30, an hour and a half before normal time, feeling confident and powerful. She had spent the previous night planning other improvements she'd implement, including a productivity monitoring system that would involve detailed daily reports from each employee. This feeling of absolute control lasted exactly 45 minutes. The first phone call was from David from Texas Tech Solutions. Madison answered personally, thinking it would be a perfect opportunity to showcase her competence and establish a direct relationship with an important client. Miss Madison, this is David, CEO of Texas Tech Solutions. I need to speak urgently about our renewal contract. Madison straightened in her chair, assuming her most professional and confident tone. Of course, Mr. David, it would be an immense pleasure to work directly with you, personally taking over all the company's big clients to guarantee the highest level of service. Actually, that won't be necessary. We're canceling the contract. Without Amanda, it simply doesn't make sense for us to continue with Sinclair Software. Madison was silent for a few seconds, processing what she had just heard. Mr. David, I'm sure we can offer exactly the same level of service you were receiving. We're a solid company with a very competent team. Sorry, Miss Madison, but our decision is absolutely final. Amanda wasn't just our salesperson. She was our technical consultant, our bridge with the company, someone who deeply understood our systems and needs. We'll wind down in the next 30 days as stipulated in the contract. The second phone call was from Marcus. 20 minutes later, Madison was still trying to process the first call when the phone rang again. It's Miss Madison, This is Marcus from Mega Corp Industries. I need to inform you that we're canceling our $600,000 implementation project. Mr. Marcus, please let me explain that we have an excellent team that can continue the project exactly as it was planned. Miss Madison, with all due respect, you have no idea how it was planned. Amanda participated in months of meetings with us, knows our legacy system, understands our specific limitations. Without her, we'd have to start from scratch with someone else, and frankly, you don't have confidence that anyone else in your company has the same level of technical knowledge and commitment. The third call was from Patricia, after 2 more companies called within 4 hours. Madison had received cancellation calls representing a total loss of $4.2 million in contracts. Madison was in absolute panic. Her hands were trembling as she tried to take notes of the lost values. The arrogant confidence of the morning had transformed into pure desperation. She began calling some clients back, offering substantial discounts, free additional services, anything to make them change their minds. Mr. David, we can offer 20% discount on the renewal value. Miss Madison, it's not a matter of price. It's a matter of trust and technical competence. How about 30% discount and free implementation of 2 extra functionalities? Our decision is final. Thank you. But the answer was always the same. Our relationship was with Amanda, not with the company. Without her, we don't have confidence. In service continuity, Amanda understood our needs in a unique way. It's when Madison began desperately blaming the other employees. During an emergency meeting called at 2 p.m., she exploded. You sabotaged this on purpose. Someone here said something harmful to those clients. I want to know who it was. Sarah, who was desperately trying to understand the complex client portfolio she'd inherited without any training or preparation, raised her hand nervously. Madison, I think you're not understanding how long-term commercial relationships work. Amanda wasn't just a salesperson. She was a strategic consultant for those clients. She knew their systems, participated in planning meetings, solved specific technical problems. Don't come to me with lame excuses. You're going to win back those clients, or I'll replace this entire incompetent team. Madison screamed, banging her hands on the conference table. It was at that moment that Mike, the most experienced developer in the company and one of the most respected people on the technical team, slowly stood up. Madison, with all due respect, I think you're being completely unfair to us and disrespectful to the work Amanda did. She built those relationships over years based on trust, technical competence, and dedication. It's not something you replace overnight, nor with threats or screaming. Are you questioning my leadership, Mike? Madison asked with a dangerous voice. Mike looked around the room, seeing the faces of fear, desperation, and frustration of colleagues he had respected for years. Jennifer was clearly trying not to cry. Sarah looked exhausted and overwhelmed. Even Linda from finance was present at the meeting with an expression of deep concern. No, Madison, Mike said, with a calm that dramatically contrasted with her hysteria. I'm resigning. And with that, he took his laptop, calmly turned it off, and left the conference room, leaving Madison alone with her anger and a company that was literally crumbling around her. Mike's exit was like a stone thrown into a calm lake. The waves spread quickly throughout the entire office. Within hours, Jennifer received 2 additional resignation requests, Tom from technical support and Lisa from development. Both cited incompatible changes in company culture as the main reason. Madison was desperate. In less than 48 hours, she had lost over $4 million in contracts and 3 experienced employees. The company that Janet had carefully built over 15 years was disintegrating in her daughter's hands. On Wednesday night, Madison decided to take an action that would definitively reveal her character. She got my personal number through HR files and called me. At 9:40 p.m., I was at home organizing my thoughts and considering my next steps when the phone rang. Amanda. Her voice was tense, almost hysterical. Madison, what do you want? You need to undo the damage you caused. I know it was you who convinced those clients to cancel their contracts. This is corporate sabotage. Took a deep breath, keeping my voice calm and controlled. Madison, I simply informed my my ex-clients, that I was no longer with the company. They drew their own conclusions based on the importance they placed on our working relationship. Lie. You said something to deliberately harm the company. I want you to call each of them and undo this situation immediately. And why would I do that? I asked, genuinely curious to see how far she would take this conversation. Because if you don't, I'll sue you for tortious interference with company contracts. I'll destroy your reputation in the market. I'll make sure you never work in the technology sector in Austin again. It was at that moment that something definitively shifted inside me. Madison's threats were the catalyst I needed to understand that I couldn't let this go. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about all the people she was mistreating and would continue to mistreat if she remained in that position of power. Madison, I said, with a calm that surprised even myself, you physically assaulted me, fired me without just cause, stole my legitimately earned commission, and now you're threatening me. I think you should reconsider your strategy. I didn't steal anything, and I didn't assault anyone.
Oh.
You were insubordinate. And I have dozens of witnesses to what happened. Madison and all our company policies are documented. You invented a rule on the spot to steal almost $100,000 from me. There was a tense silence before she exploded. You can't prove anything, and even if you can, who's going to believe you against the Sinclair family? I think we'll find out. And I hung up. The next morning I called Carolyn, respected labor attorney in Austin who had an excellent reputation for defending employee rights. I had found her name through an online search, and her credentials were impressive. Harvard graduate, 15 years of experience in labor law, multiple victories in high-profile cases. Caroline received me in her office on Thursday morning. Oh, she was a woman in her early 40s, perfectly put together, with gray hair, radiating competence and confidence. Her office was filled with law books and award certificates. But what impressed me most was the genuine attention she paid to my story. Amanda, let me see if I understood correctly, she said after I finished recounting the events. You were physically assaulted at the workplace, fired without just cause, had wages improperly withheld, and then were threatened by phone. Is that right? Exactly? I have multiple witnesses for all these events. Carolyn made some notes on a legal pad. How many people witnessed the assault? The entire office. At least 15 people saw Madison hit me with the clipboard, the wage withholding. Linda from finance can confirm that Madison invented a rule on the spot to steal my commission of almost $100,000. Caroline nodded, her eyebrows rising slightly. Amanda, I'm going to be direct with you. This is one of the clearest cases of labor rights violations I've ever seen. We have documented physical assault, termination without just cause, improperly withheld wages, a hostile work environment, and now post-employment intimidation. Any one of these points alone would be sufficient for a lawsuit. Together, they form an extremely solid case. I felt a wave of relief and validation. Finally, someone with authority was confirming that I wasn't exaggerating or being dramatic. What would be the next step? I asked. First, we're going to formally document everything. I want written statements from all the witnesses you mentioned. Second, we're going to send a formal letter to Sinclair Software demanding immediate payment of your withheld commission and compensation for damages. Third, if they don't respond adequately, we file a civil lawsuit. And about the threat, Madison, made to me last night? Caroline smiled for the first time in our conversation. That was a very big mistake on her part. Attempted intimidation of a witness can be considered a crime. If you recorded the conversation or have some way to document, it strengthens our case even more. Unfortunately, I hadn't recorded the call. But I explained to Carolyn that Madison would probably make more contact attempts, and she instructed me to document any future communication. Meanwhile, at Sinclair Software, the situation was deteriorating rapidly. Sarah told me later that Madison had become even more controlling and paranoid. She implemented a system where all employees had to report their activities hour by hour. She prohibited personal conversations during work hours and, more bizarrely, hired a security company to monitor suspicious activities in the office. The company was also facing enormous practical problems. Without Mike, Tom, and Lisa, the technical department was severely reduced. Sarah was trying to manage a client portfolio she didn't understand, and the few remaining clients began complaining about service quality. On Friday, 2 days after my conversation with Caroline, Sinclair Software lost two more important clients. Dallas Tech Solutions canceled a $300,000 contract, and Houston Industries decided not to renew an annual agreement worth $250,000. Both cited changes in service quality as the main reason. Madison was literally panicking. She had lost almost $5 million in a week, and rumors about company problems were beginning to spread through Austin's technology market. Other suppliers began calling Sinclair's remaining clients, offering alternative services. That's when Madison made her next crucial mistake. She tried to lie to Janet about what was happening. On Friday night, Janet called from San Francisco to check how things were going. Madison painted a completely false picture of the situation. She said she had optimized the team by removing problematic elements, that she was implementing improvements in operational efficiency, and that some minor contractual renegotiations were underway. What Madison didn't know is that David from Texas Tech Solutions had Janet's personal number and had called her on Thursday night to express his concern about the direction the company was taking. David didn't go into details about what had happened to me, but made it clear that he was deeply concerned with the management changes and that Amanda was an invaluable asset the company had lost. Janet was confused by David's call, especially since Madison had said I'd been fired for minor insubordination. And Janet wasn't the type of person who ignored inconsistencies in information about her company. On Saturday morning, Janet canceled her last meetings in San Francisco and booked a flight back to Austin. She would arrive Monday morning, 3 days earlier than planned, and Madison had no idea of the storm that was about to break. Janet arrived at the office Monday at 7 o'clock in the morning, 2 hours before normal work hours. She had spent the entire flight from San Francisco to Austin reviewing company, putting numbers on her laptop and making calls to important clients. What she discovered left her absolutely furious. The company had lost 40% of its monthly revenue in 1 week. Multi-million-dollar contracts canceled, experienced employees fired, and negative rumors spreading through the market like wildfire. Worse still, when Janet discreetly called some clients to understand what was happening, she discovered that I'd been fired under circumstances no one could clearly explain, and shook her hand, partner. On Wednesday, I returned to Sinclair Software, not as an employee, but as a minority partner with 35% participation. The difference in how I was received was immediate and notable. Jennifer greeted me with a genuine smile of relief. Sarah practically sighed with happiness seeing me, and Linda from finance discreetly gave me a quick hug. "Amanda, so good that you're back," Sarah said. "I was trying to manage your client portfolio and it's impossible. Each client has specific needs that I simply don't know. My first task was to win back the lost clients. I started by calling David from Texas Tech Solutions. David, it's Amanda. I know you canceled the contract with Sinclair Software, and I don't blame you one bit. But I'd like to inform you that there's been a significant change in the company. I'm now a partner in the company and have total autonomy over the commercial department. Amanda, what a dramatic change. Does this mean you have control over how our projects are managed?" "Exactly. Plus, I've implemented new protocols to ensure that service quality not only returns to the previous level, but is even better." "Interesting, let me talk to my team. But if you're personally guaranteeing continuity and quality, we can reconsider." The calls to Marcus and Patricia had similar results. In 1 week, I managed to win back 6 of the 8 lost clients. Other 2 had signed contracts with competitors, but made it clear they'd consider returning when those contracts expired. While I rebuilt our client base, Janet dealt with the legal consequences of Madison's actions. Carolyn had sent a formal letter demanding payment of my confiscated commission, plus damages for the physical assault and inadequate treatment. To avoid a public lawsuit that would further damage the company's reputation, Janet agreed to pay a substantial settlement. Madison, in turn, was having difficulties accepting her new reality. She tried several times to create problems, spreading rumors about me throughout Austin's technology industry. She told acquaintances at other companies that I was problematic and disloyal, trying to damage my professional reputation. Ironically, this strategy completely backfired. Austin's technology community is relatively small, and many people already knew my reputation for professionalism and competence. When conflicting stories began circulating Madison, saying I was problematic, while respected clients spoke openly about my professional excellence, people quickly realized who was lying. Worse for Madison, some executives she had approached to spread rumors were people I had worked with directly over the years. When David learned that Madison was trying to damage my reputation, he personally called 2 other CEOs in Austin to tell the true story of what had happened at Sinclair Software. The shot backfired spectacularly. Instead of damaging my career, Madison's attempts to defame me only consolidated my reputation as a competent professional who had been unfairly treated, and who had reinvented herself impressively. With my new partner position, I implemented significant changes in the company. First, I hired back Mike, Tom, and Lisa, offering them all substantial raises and contractual guarantees that they would never again be subjected to the type of treatment they had received. All accepted to return, relieved to see that the company would again have competent leadership. Second, I completely restructured our client service process. We created a system where each important client had a dedicated account manager, but also a backup team that knew their specific needs. This would ensure we would never again be vulnerable if a key employee left the company. Third, I established a continuous training program for the entire sales team, ensuring everyone understood not only our products, but also the specific needs of different types of clients. The results were impressive. In 3 months, we not only recovered the lost clients, but also closed contracts with 5 important new companies. Our quarterly revenue was 20% higher than in the same period the previous year. More importantly, the work environment at the company was completely transformed without the toxic atmosphere Madison had created. Employees returned to being productive and creative. Jennifer told me it was like the company had started breathing again after months of tension. Janet, in turn, was impressed with the results and clearly relieved to have made the right decision. During one of our weekly partner meetings, she told me, "Amanda, I realized I should have offered a partnership years ago. You were always the heart of this company, but I was so focused on maintaining family control that I didn't adequately recognize your contribution." 6 months after my return, I received an unexpected call. It was the CEO of a large technology company in Dallas, who had heard about our business transformation and wanted to know if we'd be interested in a strategic partnership that could be worth tens of millions of dollars. During the meeting, he told me something I'll never forget. "Amanda, what impresses us most aren't just your numbers, but the way you transformed a crisis into opportunity. This demonstrates exactly the type of strategic leadership we look for in our partners." Madison, meanwhile, was struggling to rebuild her own reputation. Janet forced her to take intensive courses in business management and workplace ethics. But everyone knew it would be a long road until she could be considered for any leadership position again. She tried to get positions at other technology companies in Austin, but her reputation had preceded her. The story of what happened at Sinclair Software had spread through the local business community, and experienced executives avoided hiring someone with a proven track record of creating toxic work environments. Eventually, Madison was forced to accept a junior position at a small startup, earning a fraction of what she used to receive as an allowance from the family company. It was a hard lesson about the real consequences of treating people with disrespect and incompetence. 1 year after everything started, I was sitting in my new office, now decorated with business excellence awards and photos from industry events where I'd been invited to speak about leadership and business transformation. Sinclair Software had become a case study on how to recover from a management crisis, and I was frequently invited to tell our story at conferences. Sarah had been promoted to finance supervisor. Mike became our technology director, and Jennifer took on a new position. As human resources coordinator, the company had not only survived the storm created by Madison, but had become stronger and more resilient. The most ironic thing of all is that Madison, in trying to humiliate me and destroy my career, inadvertently gave me the opportunity to achieve something I never would have imagined possible. Her arrogance and cruelty were the catalysts that transformed me from an employee into a successful entrepreneur. Today, when I look back, I can honestly say I'm grateful for the experience, however painful it was at the time. It taught me that my value didn't depend on other people's validation, that I had leadership capabilities I didn't even know I possessed, and that sometimes the worst situations can transform into the best opportunities. Madison learned in the hardest way possible that treating people with cruelty and disrespect has real consequences. Her attempt to use temporary power to humiliate someone she considered inferior resulted in her own professional and personal downfall. Sinclair Software prospered. Our team united more than ever. And I discovered that I had drastically underestimated my own potential for years. Sometimes the best transformations come from the most unexpected situations. And the person who tries to bring you down can end up being the one who elevates you to heights you never imagined reaching. Madison arrived at the office at 8:30, expecting to find a company functioning under her rigorous command. Instead, she found her mother sitting in her own executive chair, with a pile of financial reports on the desk and an expression Madison had learned to fear since childhood. "Madison, sit down." Janet's voice was dangerously calm. "Mom, good that you came back early. I want to show you all the improvements I implemented in the company. I managed to optimize the team and establish real discipline." "Sit down," Janet repeated, this time with a tone that admitted no discussion. Madison sat in the chair on the other side of the desk, suddenly nervous. There was something in Janet's posture that made her feel like a 5-year-old child who had broken something valuable. "Madison, explained to me how the company lost $4.2 million in contracts in 1 week. Well, some clients were being difficult and demanding unrealistic conditions, so we decided it would be better to get rid of non-productive relationships." "Non-productive relationships?" Janet opened a folder and began reading. "Texas Tech. Solutions, $800,000 annually. Client for 3 years, never had a late payment. Megacorp Industries, $600,000 in approved project, 5-year relationship. Austin Digital, $400,000 annually. Automatic renewals for 3 consecutive years. These are the non-productive clients you decided to dismiss." Madison swallowed hard. "Mom, you don't understand. They were being disrespectful and questioning my authority." "Your authority?" Janet leaned forward. "Madison, do you know how long it took me to build those relationships? Do you have any idea what it means to lose clients of this magnitude in 1 week? I can win them all back. It's just a matter of no, you can't." Jeanette opened another folder because I discovered something interesting when I called them. They all mentioned the same person, Amanda. Apparently you fired her. Would you like to explain why? It was at that moment Madison realized she was in dangerous territory. She had told a very edited version of the story to Janet, and now it was clear her mother had discovered details she'd omitted. "Amanda was a problem, Mom. She arrived late, questioned my decisions, created a toxic work environment." "Funny," Janet said, leafing through some papers. "Because Jennifer from reception sent me an email last night. Apparently you physically assaulted Amanda with a clipboard. Is this true?" Madison went pale. It was an accident. She was being aggressive, and I defended myself. "Jennifer also mentioned that you confiscated Amanda's commission almost $100,000, inventing a rule that doesn't exist anywhere in our company policy. I was protecting the company's interests." Janet closed the folders and looked directly into her daughter's eyes. When she spoke, her voice was ice cold. "Madison, in 1 week, you destroyed relationships that took me years to build, lost irreplaceable experienced employees, created a toxic work environment, physically assaulted our best salesperson, and stole money she had legitimately earned. The company is on the verge of bankruptcy because of your decisions." "Mom, you're exaggerating. I can fix everything." "No, you can't." Janet stood up. "You are removed from any position of authority in this company, effective immediately. You will not be involved in any business decisions until you learn how a company truly works. And you're going to start by taking business management and workplace ethics courses." Madison tried to protest, but Janet raised her hand to silence her. In addition, you're going to personally apologize to every employee you mistreated, starting with Amanda. I'm not going to humiliate myself apologizing to you will do this. Or you can consider your family inheritance canceled. And if Amanda decides to sue us, which would be perfectly justified, you'll personally bear all legal costs. With Madison removed from the team, Janet spent the rest of the morning doing damage control. She personally called each lost client, trying to understand exactly what had happened and if there was any possibility of recovering the relationships. The responses were consistent and disheartening. All clients specifically mentioned that I was the reason they had chosen and remained with Sinclair Software. Without me, they saw no reason to continue. That's when Janet made a decision that would change everything. On Tuesday morning, Janet appeared at my door. I was working from home, organizing my legal strategy with Caroline, and considering job offers that had begun to appear. When I opened the door and saw Janet standing there, I confess I was surprised. Janet, I wasn't expecting to see you. Amanda, may I come in? I need to talk to you about something very important. I let her in and offered coffee. Janet looked visibly dejected, very different from the confident executive I knew. There were lines of worry around her eyes that weren't there before the trip. Amanda, I came here to personally apologize for my daughter's unacceptable behavior. What she did to you was horrible, unjustifiable, and completely contrary to all the values I'd tried to instill in my company. Thank you for saying that, Janet. It means a lot to me. I discovered everything that happened. The physical assault, the termination without cause, the confiscation of your commission, and I also learned about the threats she made by phone. Janet leaned forward. Amanda, I'm going to be direct with you. The company is in serious crisis. We lost over $4 million in contracts. 3 experienced employees resigned. And our reputation in the market is being questioned. More importantly, I realized something that should have been obvious long ago. You weren't just our best salesperson. You were the heart of our commercial operation. I waited for her to continue, curious to see where this conversation would lead. Amanda, I want to offer not just your job back, but a proposal that truly recognizes your value to the company. I'm offering a 25% partnership in Sinclair Software in addition to your full salary back, and of course, immediate payment of the commission Madison illegally confiscated. I was genuinely surprised. A 25% partnership in a company the size of Sinclair Software was worth millions of dollars. It was a generous offer that went far beyond simply fixing what had happened. It's an interesting offer, Janet, but I need to be honest with you about something. Of course. What is it? In recent days, I've had time to reflect on my situation. I realized that although I always respected you and the company, I was being substantially undervalued. My work generated millions in revenue, but I received only a fraction of that back. Janet nodded. You're absolutely right. That's why I'm offering the partnership. I appreciate that. But 25% still doesn't adequately reflect my true contribution to the company. Besides, after what happened with Madison, I need guarantees that this will never happen again. What do you have in mind? I took a deep breath. Carolyn had helped me prepare for this conversation, and I knew exactly what I wanted. Janet, I'm willing to return, but with specific conditions that protect both my interests and the company's. Future. I'm listening. First, 35% equity participation, not 25%. Second, total autonomy in the sales department, including the right to hire and fire within my area. Third, an ironclad contract that protects me from future interference, whether from Madison or any other family member. And fourth, a 40% salary increase over what I was earning before. Janet was silent for a few moments, clearly evaluating the proposal. I could see the mental calculations happening, the value of the partnership, the cost of the salary increase compared to the cost of continuing to lose clients and trying to rebuild the company from scratch. Amanda, she said finally, considering that the company is on the verge of bankruptcy without you, and that winning back those clients alone is practically impossible. I accept all your terms. She extended her hand to me. Partner, I smiled.